Your weight isn't a discipline problem. It's an awareness problem. You've counted calories, you've cut carbs, you've skipped dinner, skipped dessert, skipped the bread basket at every meal for years. And somehow, the number on the scale barely moves. Meanwhile, in Japan, people eat rice every day. They eat noodles, they eat pastries and pork buns and pickled vegetables and rich, buttery sauces over steaming bowls of ramen. No calorie apps, no macros, no gym memberships stacked in the closet like guilt. And yet, Japan has some of the lowest obesity rates on Earth. Most people in the West never realize this. They assume it's genetics, or metabolism, or some cultural fluke that doesn't apply to them. But it isn't genetics. It isn't luck. It's 7 quiet rules. Rules about how to eat, not what to eat. Rules so simple you've probably broken every one of them today without even noticing. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Here's what's coming. Rule number 3 involves a plate. Not a diet plan, not a portion chart, just the size of the dish sitting in front of you, and why Japanese kitchens have used it for centuries to control weight without anyone ever thinking about restriction. Rule number 5 has nothing to do with food at all. It's about silence, about what happens to your body when you eat without noise, without a screen, without anything pulling your attention away from the meal itself. But rule number 7 is the one that changes everything. It's not a rule about eating less. It's the opposite of everything Western dieting has taught you to believe about food, guilt, and control. Most people give up watching before they get there. Don't be one of them. Stay until the 7th rule. Number 1. Think about the last time you finished a meal. Really finished it. Plate scraped clean, maybe even a little too full to stand up right away. You were taught to do that. Clean your plate. Don't waste food. Eat until it's gone, not until you're satisfied. So you eat past full, almost every time, and you call it normal, because everyone around you does the same thing. In Okinawa, one of the longest living populations on the planet, elders eat differently. They stop before the plate is empty. They stop before they feel stuffed. They stop at roughly 80% full, and then they simply put down their chopsticks. This is Hara Hachi Bu. It's an old Confucian teaching, still spoken before meals in Okinawan homes, and it means exactly what it sounds like. Eat until you are 80% full, not one bite more. Here's what nobody talks about. Your body takes almost 20 minutes to register fullness. If you eat until you feel done, you've already overeaten by the time your brain catches up. Okinawan elders aren't restricting. They're simply eating slow enough and stopping early enough to let their body finish the sentence on its own. You don't need to finish the plate. You need to trust the pause before you do. That single pause, repeated 3 times a day for decades, is part of why an entire region of Japan lives longer and has heavier disease rates, stay lower, without a single diet plan in sight. And if pausing at 80% feels strange, wait until you see what's on your plate to begin with, because rule number 2 isn't about how much you eat, it's about how many small dishes you eat it from. Number 2. Picture a typical Western dinner plate. One large surface, one main food piled high, taking up most of the space. A mountain of pasta, a slab of meat, a heap of mashed potatoes, with everything blending into everything else. One plate, one food, one portion size that keeps creeping upward because bigger plates have quietly become normal, and a full plate feels like a good plate. A traditional Japanese meal looks nothing like this. Instead of one large dish, there's a small bowl of rice, a small bowl of soup, 2 or 3 small side dishes, each in its own little container, arranged around the table like a tiny, deliberate collection. This is Ichiju-Sansai, 1 soup, 3 sides. It's the backbone of traditional Japanese home cooking,
And it means the meal is built from variety in small portions rather than volume in one. Here's what makes it work. Nobody is counting anything. There's no scale, no measuring cup, no app tracking grams. The size of the dish does the counting for you. A small bowl physically holds less, so a full bowl still means a modest portion, and the eye is satisfied by variety, not by sheer quantity. You've been trying to control portions with willpower. Japan controls them with geometry. And this is the part that changes how you see everything else. Because once your table is full of small, colorful dishes, the meal feels abundant, even though the actual amount of food is far smaller than a single Western-sized plate. You don't need less food, you need more dishes and less on each one. But even the smallest, most balanced plate can undo itself if you eat too fast to notice you've had enough, which is exactly why Rule 3 isn't just about the plate, it's about the pace.
Number 3. Think about how you actually eat most meals. Lunch at your desk, one hand on a sandwich, the other scrolling through emails. Dinner in front of the television, barely tasting what's on the fork. Breakfast in the car, eaten in 4 rushed bites before a red light changes. You're not eating, you're refueling, and your body knows the difference, even when your mind doesn't. Before a traditional Japanese meal begins, there's a pause, hands come together, and a simple phrase is spoken, itadakimasu. It translates loosely to, I humbly receive, and it's said before the first bite as a moment of gratitude toward the food, the farmer, the cook, the meal itself. Then the eating begins, slowly, deliberately, often in quiet, without a phone on the table, without the television running in the background. Most people in the West never realize this small pause is doing something physical, not just spiritual. It signals to the body that a meal is starting, a real one, deserving of attention. It slows the very first bite, which slows every bite after it. And this is the part that changes everything. When you eat slowly, with intention, your brain has time to register fullness before you've eaten past it. The 80% rule from earlier only works if you're paying enough attention to feel it arrive. You've been eating for years without ever really beginning the meal. If you've been nodding along so far, wait until the next one, because what's coming next has nothing to do with food and everything to do with why you're eating at all. So far, every rule has been about the table. What's on the plate, how big the dish is, how slowly you eat from it. But weight isn't only decided at the table. It's decided in the hundreds of small, forgettable moments around it. The walk to the station, the stairs instead of the elevator, the errand run on foot instead of by car. And this is where it gets interesting, because what we're about to cover next, most people in the West have never even considered it, not as exercise, not as anything at all. Number 4. For most people in the West, exercise is a separate event. You block out an hour, you change your clothes, drive to a gym, force yourself through a workout you've been dreading since you woke up, then drive back home exhausted and relieved it's over for another day. And if that hour doesn't happen, nothing replaces it. The rest of the day is spent sitting, at a desk, in a car, on a couch, with almost no movement in between. In Japan, daily life is built differently. Trains replace cars for millions of people, which means walking to the station, standing on the platform, climbing stairs instead of taking an escalator. Errands happen on foot or by bicycle. Convenience stores are close enough to walk to, so people do. There's no name for this in Japanese philosophy, because it isn't a philosophy. It's simply the default shape of an ordinary day. Movement built into the architecture of life itself, rather than bolted on as a task to survive. You've been treating movement like a chore you schedule. Japan treats it like breathing, something that just happens because the day is built to require it. This is the part most people miss entirely.
It's not about intensity. 10 minutes of walking here, 5 minutes of stairs there, a short walk to buy dinner instead of driving, none of it feels like exercise, and that's exactly why it works. Nothing to dread means nothing to skip. You don't need a harder workout. You need a life that moves without asking permission. And once your body starts moving more without trying, something else starts to matter even more. What happens in the quiet moments when you're not moving at all?
Number 5. Think about the last meal you ate in complete silence. No television playing in the background, no podcast filling the quiet, no phone propped up against a glass, scrolling while you chew. If you're struggling to remember one, you're not alone. Most meals in the West happen alongside some kind of noise, because silence while eating can feel strange, even uncomfortable, like something is missing. In many Japanese homes, meals are eaten quietly, not in tense silence, but in a kind of gentle stillness. The sound of chopsticks, a bowl set down, the occasional soft conversation, and little else competing for attention. This connects back to ma, the Japanese concept of negative space. It means the power of emptiness, of silence, of the pause between things. In a meal, ma is the absence of noise that lets you actually notice what you're eating. Most people never realize how much noise steals from a meal. When your ears are busy, your brain has less room to register taste, texture, and fullness. You eat faster, you eat more, and you barely remember the meal 5 minutes after it's over. What they discovered, without ever calling it a study or a rule, is that silence isn't empty. It's full of information your body needs, signals about fullness, taste, and satisfaction that noise simply drowns out. Turn off the noise, and your body starts talking again. But even a quiet, well-portioned meal can quietly work against you if what's sitting on the table between meals is wrong. And that's exactly where the next rule begins. Before we go further, take a moment with this. If any of what you've heard so far feels familiar, the rushed lunches, the mindless dinners, the plate you clean without ever really tasting it, you don't need to change everything today. Just pick one meal, your next one. Put the phone down, turn off the show in the background, sit, even for 10 minutes, and eat without anything else asking for your attention. That's it. That's the whole ask. Because the rules you're about to hear only work if you're actually present enough to notice them. Now, let's keep going. Number 6, 3 in the afternoon. Energy dips, focus fades, and the hand reaches for something. Chips from the pantry, a candy bar from the desk drawer, crackers eaten straight from the box without much thought at all. None of it satisfies for long. 20 minutes later, you're reaching again. This is the cycle of empty snacking, food that fills the mouth but never quite fills the need underneath it. In Japan, the small foods eaten between meals look almost nothing like this. A few slices of pickled vegetable, a spoonful of miso, salty and deep, a strip of dried seaweed, a few pieces of tofu, a small dish of fermented soybeans called natto. Small amounts, intensely flavorful, and gone in just a few bites. The common thread running through all of it is umami, a deep, savory richness that Japanese cooking has understood for centuries, long before the West had a word for it at all. Fermented foods like miso and pickles carry an intensity of flavor that satisfies the palate quickly without needing a large portion to do it. You've been chasing satisfaction with sugar and salt in large amounts. Japan reaches it with flavor concentrated into a small one. This is the one idea that makes the rest of this list actually work. A cup of chips can disappear without you noticing. A few bites of something intensely flavorful can't. The mouth simply won't let it happen unnoticed. Small and intense beats large and empty every single time. And once you understand that food doesn't need fear or control, only respect, you're ready for the rule that ties everything else together. 6 rules down. 6 ways of eating that ask for attention instead of restriction, presence instead of punishment. But none of them fully explain why this works, why an entire culture eats rice, noodles, and dessert and still stays thin without a single calorie counted. That answer sits inside the 7th rule. Save it for last, because that one changes how you see everything before it. Number 7. You've been taught to sort food into 2 piles: good foods and bad foods, foods you're allowed and foods you should feel guilty about the moment they touch your tongue. A slice of cake isn't just cake, it's a decision you'll apologize for later. Maybe out loud, maybe just to yourself. That guilt doesn't make you eat less. It usually makes you eat in secret, eat faster, or eat more later to make up for the deprivation. Fear of food has never once made anyone thinner. It's only ever made the relationship with food heavier. In Japan, there's a different lens entirely, and it's called Mottainai. It means a sense of regret over waste, a quiet discomfort at not fully using or appreciating something of value. It applies to objects, to time, and just as deeply to food. Mottainai doesn't ask you to fear the rice, the noodles, or the dessert. It asks you to respect them enough to actually notice them, to not waste a single bite on distraction, guilt, or mindlessness. There's no bad food under Mottainai. There's only food eaten with attention or food wasted through carelessness. Most people in the West never realize this is the missing piece behind everything else on this list. Eating until 80% full, small, varied dishes, slow meals in silence, walking instead of driving, real flavor instead of empty snacking. None of it requires guilt. It only requires respect. You don't need to fear food to control it. You need to respect it enough to actually pay attention. And that single shift from fear to respect is the one rule that makes the other 6 actually work instead of just sounding nice. Look back at everything you've just heard. Eat until 80% full. Small plates, many dishes. Slow down and mean it. Move without calling it exercise. Eat in silence. Choose flavor over emptiness. Respect food instead of fearing it. Not one of those 7 rules asked you to count anything. Not one asked you to restrict, ban, or punish yourself for a single bite. There's no calorie app hiding inside any of them, no forbidden food list, no number on a scale used as a verdict on your worth. And this is the part that changes how you see everything else. What looked like 7 separate rules is really one idea, repeated 7 different ways. Attention. Attention to fullness. Attention to portion. Attention to pace. Attention to movement. To silence. To flavor. To respect. You've spent years treating weight as a war to be won through willpower and restriction. Japan never fought that war at all. It simply paid closer attention, meal after meal, day after day, for centuries. The diet was never a diet. It was awareness, practiced quietly at every single meal, which means the tools were never out of reach. You've had them the entire time. You just needed someone to name them. If any of this gave you even one thing to think about differently, share it with someone who might need to hear it. A sister still counting every calorie, a friend who hasn't sat down for a real meal in months, someone who's been fighting food for years without ever being told the fight was never necessary. And if you want more of this, the quiet wisdom Japan has been living for centuries, long before the West turned eating into a battle, subscribe, because every week we go a little deeper into the calm, patient way of life that's been hiding in plain sight all along. Your weight was never a discipline problem. You just needed to pay attention.